In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He had 3 ships and left from Spain. He sailed through sunshine, wind, and rain. He sailed by night, he sailed by day. He used the stars to find his way. And the poem continues, or at least it used to. That is until Columbus Day was removed from the official holiday list of the village of Indiantown. That's right, removed from the list. The fact that these people find the holiday offensive, I guess, makes them the official arbiter of history. If a group of whites find the radical and Marxist behavior of radical black activists to be offensive, well, we're racist. But hey, because of their position of minority privilege, they're allowed to just rewrite history, and we're supposed to look for the positive in this. I mean, after all, they just feel they're really doing the right thing and just want to do what's best for Indiantown. Give them a break, they say. Of course, this message will be called an overgeneralization by the go-along crowd, but let me ask you how many items you have to give away before you realize what you are doing. Go along to get along will leave you empty and complicit. Unfortunately, this is the course that many mostly progressive cities and states have taken. Now, your local village of Indiantown, right here in little old Martin County, has followed their example. They're putting on the globalist progressive suit both legs at a time. What can you expect, though, when you have a globalist black power social justice activist manager like Howard Brown and Anthony I can't use my name without my EO title Dowling? Then there's the ever-plump and peevish little Miss Janet, and to the same degree go along to build up my business Stone. Oh, let's not forget the I'm black and therefore holier than thou Jackie Clark either. But how American of all of you? Actually, how dare you? Stop looking at everything through the lens of race already. It's getting old. In reality, your behavior and actions are actually very, very racist. So while you call the rest of us negative, why don't y'all try to and reverse your negative course and look at the positive aspects of America and our heritage? It works both ways, boys and girls. You see, by renaming Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, they've decided to emphasize the regretful aspects of Western colonialization and conquest of the Americas rather than its positive virtues. That's problematic for a host of reasons. Western civilizations remain, for all its historical faults, the noblest civilization mankind has yet devised. Western civilization, more than any other major civilization today, has emphasized the dignity and unique worth of each and every person. That central principle has allowed it to change from within, to recognize its past failures and to liberate those whom it used to oppress. It's the fuller recognition of its own principles that has allowed Western nations to enfranchise women, racial and ethnic minorities, gays and lesbians, and Native Americans themselves. Celebrations that fail to recognize that and focus only on the West's imperfect past implicitly reject the ideas that make our society worth living in today. So, be positive. It's surely no coincidence that Latin American nations governed by socialist regimes, those like Guatemala, have also chosen to rename their Columbus Day celebrations. Nicaragua's Sandinistas government, for example, has renamed it Day of Indigenous Black and Popular Resistance, while the late socialist dictator Hugo Chavez had Venezuela change it to Day of Indigenous Resistance. Their aims were clear: label Western civilization as inherently oppressive and rapacious, and set their socialist governments as an alternative. It's possible to celebrate Columbus Day in the manner of a proud and decent society, one that can recognize its faults while proudly asserting its virtues. That's what tour guides at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello increasingly do. Jefferson's slave owning and treatment of his mistress, Sally Herrings, are no longer ignored, and they're part of his heritage too. But his shining virtues, his love of freedom, his quest for knowledge, his affirmation of human rights are also part of the story, and indeed the reason visitors flock to his home. His ideas made him more than just another plantation owner, and a fair assessment of his life must conclude that ultimately his virtues outweighed his faults. The West that Columbus brought to America was not the liberal, tolerant West we know today. Oh no, the birth of the Enlightenment was nearly 2 centuries in the future, and liberal democratic ideals remained incompletely accepted in some areas of Western Europe until after World War II or later. It's understandable then that many native people find the celebration of his arrival offensive. I get it. For their ancestors, the result of his coming was terrible: disease, slaughter, and enslavement. The English form of Western civilization that we inherited was especially open to ideals of freedom and toleration. The United States is a good place in which to live as a result. And there was a reason the liberators of Spanish America in the early 19th century modeled their constitutions after ours. As with Jefferson, we should be proud to say that the good in our ideals outweigh the problems our imperfect realizations of them has caused. America has changed immensely over its lifetime. We've used the classic liberal ideals of that small British republic, hugging the Atlantic coast, to make full citizens of immigrants from Asia, Europe, Africa, and beyond. We have used those ideals to free slaves and to continue the hard work of undoing the effects of centuries of slavery and segregation wrought on our African American brothers and sisters. We're not perfect, but no human society ever is. We are simply what we have always been, a good society trying to get better. Columbus Day should be a celebration of that. So when you see the fabric of the underpinnings being ripped out from under you and you say nothing, then you are complicit. If you go along to get along, then you're as guilty of the attempt to remove our storied past. If you're so practical that you cede an inch every time you feel you need to stand, then you're fuel for their gamesmanship that's being used to rewrite your history. As a people, we've done things that we're proud of. We've also done things that we are not proud of and have later regretted. But by facing those transgressions head on, it has allowed us the opportunity as good people to obtain justice and resolution and to further liberty in her cause. We have even created a better nation by abolishing practices in America of man being shackled for the use and benefit of another man. We did so in such a compressed window of history that on a timeline, man's freedom appears as but an anomaly to humankind. Be sure, though, that we cannot remove the monuments and statues, degrade the fabric that is our storied past, and pretend that we're not trying to rewrite our history in reality. It does not fly in the face of reason. There's a significant percentage of the world's population right now that understands there's a strong disturbance in this force. Like us, others recognize the approaching storm, and it's grand in proportion. Things are not working. Large numbers of once civically and politically slumbering Americans are coming around to this reality, as well are many of the citizens in socialist Europe. In the weeks, months, and years ahead, the awakened and upset will far outnumber the establishment. Many will be and are ignorant as to their role in this process. All they want is resolution. They want somebody to fix it. As they do wake and join the scream for an end to the insanity, those with power will become increasingly jumpy. There's a bigger picture that most people aren't seeing in all of this, though. The goal of the globalists and our enemies is the dismantling of our American heritage and, therefore, the destruction of our identity as a nation. Removing historical monuments and statues is first. Removing the anthem is next. Ultimately, the goal is to remove the Constitution. If we continue to capitulate and give these social justice warriors and their globalist handlers what they want, well, then we will have given away our republic. If allowed to continue, then they will succeed in the dismantling of our culture and the removal of our heritage. This will leave us in chaos and primed for socialist governmental control. In other words, we're quickly becoming the altered states of America. This tactic is not new. It's been the game plan for a long time. We, those of us that are awake, are seeing this unfold right before our eyes. It's far deeper than what you see on the surface. So prepare yourself for the outcome of the actions of those in charge. Your world's about to change in big ways you've never imagined.